Today I'm going to present you my way of mapping out an automation project from the planning of the project to its implementation. So it's mostly focusing on business processes, but of course can be easily adapted for your personal needs. So we will go through this 4-step guide, starting with planning of the project, the mapping of the process, then the testing of the automation, and finally the implementation of the automation. The first step is about planning the project. It's about building finally the foundation for this project. As you can see, it starts with many questions. And the first question that you should answer are what are the systems that need to be integrated, and what are the different applications, databases, and other systems, maybe external systems that you want to integrate with. So you need to understand and clarify all of these different systems. Then, of course, you have to ask why you want to do that. What are the final objectives? And for example, you want to integrate a CRM system with an email marketing tools to automate email campaigns. So these are to be very clear from the beginning. And by asking the question, you will also ask yourself about finally the integration capabilities of those systems. There are some cases where finally, if you dig a bit, try to understand all of the system, you will see that probably they don't have the capabilities required to automate them. And I'm thinking, for example, about traditional banking system. They do not very often offer APIs, so you cannot connect to them easily and make transactions or even get reports. So that's an example of where probably you have to think about maybe a new tools, maybe a new bank. So you have to ask the good question. Second point is about data. So you have to identify what are the data you're going to share between the different systems. What are their format, inputs and outputs, if it is JSON, CSV, XML, whatever. Do you have to transform them? Do you have to clean the data? So all of this has to be clear from the beginning. Then you have to understand how you're going to process them in batches or real time. And there is some cases where batches are better than real time. So you also have to consider it. The third point is about the impact. It's about understanding the business processes that will rely on the automation that you're building. So by doing this, you will understand better how the integration will impact these processes. So it's important to discuss the benefits that you expect from this integration. And do you want to increase the efficiency? Do you want to improve the data accuracy? You want to provide better customer services? So you have to understand all of this and also to consider the risk on these business processes. We bring more vulnerabilities, we make it like a single point of failure. So you have to think about all of that. So last point of this first step is about identifying who will be affected by this new automation. So this could include employees who are going to use the system, or the customer, or your IT staff. So you have to map all of these stakeholders. You will have to communicate probably with them about this integration project. You have probably to give regular update or even train them and provide support. So this also has to be considered from the beginning. At the end of this first step, you should be able to develop a project plan with the planning, with the stakeholders, the resources that you need, and also to set the success metrics that you want to measure to be sure that you are on track with your automation project. The second step of our automation journey is about mapping the process. This is the stage where you will design the workflow of how the system will interact with each other. So you start this step by understanding the current workflow of how data is being transferred manually between the system. So that will give you a clear idea of what needs to be automated. So you will have to identify what are the triggers or the events that start the process, what are the actions and the tasks that are performed during this process, and finally, what are the outcome, the result of this automation. Next, you have to select the right type of integration. So you have to discuss if you need to do a one-way synchronization where data finally go from one system to the others, but not back, or if you want to go with a two-way synchronization where data flows in both directions. The next step is about choosing the right tools. So now that you understand the workflows that you want to automate, the triggers that you need, the task that has to be performed, you have to select the tools that, of course, can fulfill all these requirements. So you need to have a tools that provide the good triggers, the good actions. You have to understand the limitation of your tools, the challenges that you may face during the implementation, the cost as well. So all of this has to be considered when you will select your tools. Then you have to discuss how the tools will handle the error or exception during the automation. So for example, what happens if a piece of data fails to transfer, or if the process just stops in the middle, or even do not start. And this will also trigger a new question about how you're going to monitor and receive alerts regarding this automation. The next point is about understanding the security aspect of this automation. So for example, how will the data be protected during the transfer? What are the permissions needed for this automation to work? So these are important points to consider, of course, before implementing your process. Finally, it's important to document your integration process. So this includes all the details about your workflow, the triggers, the schedules, any issue that you have encountered and how you solve them, and any specific configuration or settings that you have done. So this will be very important when it's come to troubleshoot or even to maintain or update your system in the future. At the end of this step 2, you should now have all the information that you need to develop your process in the tools that you have selected. The step 3 is about testing your process. So this is a critical step in this integration process to ensure that everything works as expected before you implement it and go live. So you start this by developing your test cases, and not only the typical one, but also the edge case is the one that you think that will never happen and finally will break your system. So you have to discuss the importance of a comprehensive testing to catch any potential issues that can happen before it really affects your live systems. Now that you have developed your test cases, it's time to perform the test. It's involved testing the triggers to see if the process starts correctly, check if the data has been transferred properly, if they are correctly integrated in the target system, and be able to interpret the result and the outcomes of the process. It's also important to, in this phase, to be sure that if ever something goes wrong, are we able to detect it? So the next step is error handling. So it's about discussing what to do if a test fails. So this could involve checking the error logs, troubleshooting the issues, and then of course fix it. For example, you have to wonder what are the information that the logs can provide to us. And then, in addition to testing the functionality of the process and the automation, it's important to test its performance. So this could involve testing how long the integration takes to run, how many resources it consumed. So you have to discuss really the importance of performance testing, and especially for integration that will run quite frequently or that are going to handle a large amounts of data. Of course, security testing is also important. This could involve checking that the data is encrypted during the transfer, or for example, that the integration doesn't open up any security vulnerabilities. Finally, testing is an iterative process. After each round of tests, of course, you have to fix what you have discovered, and you should refine your integration and test again. You also should define what are the criteria to decide that at the end the process is ready to go live, that it has met all the functional, the security and performance requirements. Now that you have finalized all your tests and your automation process has met all your requirements to go live, it's time to go in production. The first step is of course to implement the integration. So it might involve finalizing the configuration, setting up the schedules for when the process should start, and be sure that all the permissions are in place. Once the automation is live, it's really important to monitor it and ensure that it's working correctly. So you have to discuss about all the aspects about monitoring, about understanding what does it mean to successfully complete a process, what does it mean to have accurate data, to have good performance. So you have to also consider to setting up alerts and notification for certain events using probably built-in monitoring of the tools. Then you have to discuss about what to do if ever the process and the automation fails or encounters an error. So this might involve checking the error logs, troubleshooting the issue, and probably in some cases reverting to a backup or a manual process until you manage to solve the issue. So know that your process is running, your automation is running properly. You have to think about the regular maintenance that you have to do around it. So it might involve checking or installing updates, reviewing the performance, and adjusting all the necessary, retesting the integration periodically to ensure that everything is still working correctly. And finally, over the time, the needs of your business may change and the automation may need to be updated or improved. So you have to discuss how to review this automation regularly to ensure that it's still meeting your needs and see how you could make improvements and update it. This is the end of the video. I hope it was helpful for you and it will help to kickstart your automation journey. And let me know in the comments if you have any question or clarification that you would like me to provide. And also you can download this deck in the link that I have put in the description. Thank you.